Hi. All right, Mr. Mackey here. Going to teach you today about the area of composite shapes. Composite shapes, that's fancy word for multiple shapes together, like weird looking things. It's important that you've already watched the videos for the area of circles as well as the area of rectangles and the area of triangles. We're going to start with just circle part, and then we're going to branch out into doing all of the shapes at once. All right. This is a half circle. When you're finding the area of parts of circles or parts of curved parts, I like to draw the entire shape itself. There's an entire circle. Now, if you remember, what's the formula for the area of an entire circle? A equals pi r squared. Now, if we look at this line here, what is that of the entire circle if the circle existed? That would be the diameter. We need the radius to find the area. So, what do we need to do? We need to take the diameter. Let's say the diameter was 12, and we need to cut it in half to find the radius. So we're going to put 6 for the radius, and then we're going to do our calculation. Remember, 6 squared, that means 6 times 6, which is 36. 36 times pi, you can leave it in terms of pi, or you can actually multiply it by 3.14, which most of the time that's what textbooks and like online wants you to do, is multiply it by 3.14, but sometimes they'll leave it as 36 pi. And we did best at our fancy dancy calculator. 36 times 3.14 is 113.04 units. However, that is not the area of the half circle. That is the area of what? I almost told you the answer. I'm about to tell you it now anyways. That's the area of the entire circle. We only want half of that. We only want this part. So what do we need to do with this answer? Good, Chris. Take half of it. Half of 113.04. Same thing as dividing by 2. It's taking half of something. 5652 units squared. That is the half circle. Now, one of the mistakes kids make is they say, Mackie, I already took half of it. You took half of the diameter to find the radius. You didn't take half of the area of the circle. So some kids say, I already did take half, so this is my answer. You took half of the diameter. To get the radius, you still need to take half of the area. Very similarly, you might have something like this, like a little piece of a circle, like this, ooh, a little curved, like little chunk piece of pizza. I, again, like to draw the entire thing and figure out how much of the whole circle is that piece. Now, that piece would be a fourth of it. So you would, whatever the answer you got for the whole circle, you would divide by 4. Now we're going to do a couple problems where there's multiple shapes going on. It's important that you're kind of chunking it out, like chunking like piece by piece. All right, quick erase here. All right, let's do something weird looking. All right, and let's say this is 10, and these will all be feet. So I'm not going to write feet on everyone, just that's going to be 10 feet. This right here is going to be 8 feet, and this right here is going to be 7 feet. Now, we take all of this shape, and let's break it down. What 3 shapes do you see in this weird looking thing? Yes, Daniel. Rectangle, good. You see this rectangle here. What else do we see? Good, Vanessa. You see a triangle. And what other kind of weird shape do you see? Nice, Claire. You see a half circle. Now it's important that we put the numbers in the right spot. It's kind of hard for some kids to see the numbers. Let's start with the rectangle. 8 is here, so if we like broke it apart, there's our 3 shapes. I'm going to just separate them to show you the area of all of them. 8 by 10. If you remember how to find the area of a rectangle, pretty simple. Area is base times height, or length times width. 8 times 10, that would be 80. Pretty easy peasy for the rectangle. Now we go up to the triangle. This is pretty easy for kids to see. This side, 7. What do you think this is? Because it doesn't have a number there. If this is a rectangle and that's 10, that means this is 10. Now, anybody remember how to find the area of a triangle? A equals half base times height. Why is it half base times height? Because a triangle is half of a rectangle. So we're going to do 7 times 10, which is 70, and take half of 70. Again, for those that don't know how to take half of 70, you divide by 2. So 70 divided by 2 would be 35 square feet. That would be the triangle is 35. So we've got 35 here, 80 here. For our half circle, again, what did I just show you? I like to draw the entire circle. And how do you find the area of an entire circle? Pi r squared. What number is this of the circle? That would be right here. What number do you think that is? 8. So this is 8. Now we slow down. We need the radius to find the area. Is that the radius? No, no, no. That is not the radius. That is the diameter. So what would the radius be? Half of that, which is 4. Now we're going to calculate. 4 squared does not mean 4 times 2. It means 4 times 4. That would be 16. And 16 times pi. Isn't that 50, 24? Let me just double check. Yep, 50, 24. Slow down because you've done a lot of work already. Is that the area of this? No, 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 no. That is the area of an entire circle. We only want half of it. So we need to take half of this, which is 25/12. So this part is 25/12. Once you have all 3 areas, what are we going to do? Add them together. 35 plus 80 plus 25/12 equals 140.12 square feet for the entire weird looking shape. So when you have multiple, I can't show you every single problem on the planet that has a weird shape. You have to be able to look at the shape and break it into shapes you can find the area of and label each of the parts of it. I'm going to show you a couple more, but there's no possible way for me to show you every single one. You've got to be able to see different shapes. Sometimes you add them all together when there are multiple areas. Sometimes you're going to subtract when there's areas within areas. I'll show you one of those next. So, let's say we have a square. Inside of that square, we have a circle. A perfect circle that touches each edge. Now, I didn't really touch that because I'm not perfect right now. And let's say that one length of the square is 9 inches, okay? I want you to try and figure out the area of this shaded section. All these little kind of corners. Before you do anything, you need to see all of the shapes you see. What shapes do you see here? Yes, you see a square and a circle. Now let's start with the square. We know that the square is 9 inches here. Since it's a square, that means it's 9 inches here. Squares are rectangles. How do you find the area of the We get to the circle. Little more difficult. We don't see anything in here, but we have a number 9. That number 9 is this distance here. It's also this distance here, which means it's also this distance right across the middle, which happens to be the what of the circle. Starts with a D, ends with an diameter. Yes, diameter. We need the radius. The radius is not 9, that's the diameter. The radius would be half of that. Half of 9, 4.5. If you don't know what half of 9 is, take half of 8 and then add the 0.5. 4.5 squared, there's no way I know that in my head. 4.5 times 4.5. I could do it in my head, it would just take me some time. 20.25 and times it by pi. 63.585. Now, that's the area of the entire circle. That's the area of this circle. That circle is not what we're trying to figure out. We're trying to figure out all this space that's left over without the circle. So we know the entire square, if we shaded in the whole square, it would be 81. But this 63.585 is getting taken out. We don't want to count that. So what do you think we should do with this number and this number to figure out the extra space? Subtract. So you're going to take 81 and take away 63.585, and you're going to get something fancy like 81 minus 63.585 equals 17.415 square inches. That's the extra space after you take the circle away from the whole square. So sometimes you're going to have to subtract space away. Sometimes you're going to add space. Questions? You can always message me or your teacher. All right, let's try one more. Let's do something funky. Look at that little weird thing. All right, let's start with what shapes do you see? Before I even put in numbers, what shapes do you potentially see here? I see a triangle, and I see a piece of a circle. So if we cut right here, you'll see this triangle and this piece of the circle. Okay? I'm going to start putting in some numbers, okay? Let's say this is 8 and this is 10. Now, since this is a piece of a circle, 10 here, triangle, 10 and 8. Now, we remember triangle, let's start with the easier one. Half base times height. That would be base times height. 8 times 10 is 80. We need to take half of it. Why do we take half? Because it's half of a rectangle. That would be 40, because 8 times 10 is 80 and half of that is 40. Now, this little piece of a circle, what did I tell you to do when you see a part of a circle? I like to draw the whole circle. There's our whole circle. I'm going to just kind of draw in where these lines would have extended. Now this piece right here is how much of the entire circle? It's 1 out of how many pieces? 4 pieces. So this is a fourth of a circle. We're going to find the area of the entire circle. Little tricky here. All of the half circles we've done, the line ends up being the diameter. But this piece right here is actually the what? It is the radius. So we don't need to cut that in half. We're going to just put 10 there. We're going to times 10 times 10, which is 100, and we're going to times that by pi, which is 314. That is not the area of that section. That is the area of what? I'm just waiting. That's the area of the entire circle. We just want this much of it. And we already discussed that this is a fourth of it, so we're gonna take 314 and divide by 4. 78.5. That is the area of this little section. 40 is the area of that section. We're gonna put those two sections together and get 118.5 units squared will fit in this weird shape. Again, sometimes you're gonna have to subtract areas, sometimes you're gonna have to add them. You've got your three formulas. Base times height for a rectangle, half base times height for a triangle, and pi r squared for a full circle. But if it's half a circle, you need to take half of that. If it's a fourth of a circle, you need to take a fourth of it. If it's a third of a circle, you need to take a third of it. Hopefully this helps. You're gonna have a Google form to work on these composite shapes. Again, you're gonna see shapes there that I didn't just go over because I can't go over every single shape. You've gotta be able to break it apart piece by piece. I've enjoyed teaching you today. Have a good day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.